The secretary was late because of the rain, but the manager fell in love. Emily Johnson never imagined that a simple delay would completely change the course of her life. After 3 years working at the same company, she had a well-established routine and was never late, until that Tuesday morning when the rain decided to turn her commute into a real ordeal. It was exactly 8:15 a.m. when she walked into the office, completely drenched, her hair dripping and her white blouse clinging to her body. Michael Harrison, the manager known for his strictness about punctuality, was standing at the reception when he saw her walk in like that. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison. I know I'm late, but the buses stopped because of the storm," and Emily began squeezing water from her hair with her hands. Michael stood still, watching this 28-year-old woman who always arrived at work looking flawless. Something about her vulnerability in that moment touched him in a way he couldn't explain. Instead of delivering the scolding everyone expected, he took off his grey suit jacket and held it out to her. "Put this on before you catch pneumonia," he said, surprising not only Emily, but all the employees witnessing the scene. Emily hesitated for a second, but the cold was really bothering her. She took the jacket and draped it over her shoulders, feeling its warmth and the lingering scent of his cologne on the fabric. "Thank you," she murmured, still in shock at his unexpected kindness. "Go to the bathroom and dry off properly. When you come back, I want to talk to you in my office," Michael said, turning back to his office without further explanation. Her co-workers immediately started whispering. Jason from accounting walked up to Emily with a mischievous grin. "Wow, Emily, I've never seen the boss treat anyone like that. You must have some special charm," he teased. "Don't be ridiculous, Jason. He was just being polite," Emily replied, though her heart was racing inside. In those 3 years of working there, Michael had never shown any personal kindness to her, or to any other employee for that matter. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. In the bathroom, Emily tried to tidy herself up as best she could. She looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had faced many hardships in life. Raised only by her mother, Mrs. Betty, in a small house in the Hopewell Heights neighborhood, she had fought hard to get this job. Her degree in business administration had been earned by studying at night while working at a clothing store during the day. When she finally knocked on Michael's office door, he called her in. The room was elegant, with a dark wooden desk and shelves full of business books. Michael was sitting at his computer but looked up when she entered. "Have a seat, Emily," he said, gesturing to the chair in front of his desk. She sat down, still wearing his jacket, and nervously waited for what would come next. "Do you live far from here?" Michael asked unexpectedly. "In Hopewell Heights, sir. It usually takes me an hour and a half to get here, but today with the rain," she started to explain. "An hour and a half?" he interrupted, sounding surprised. "Every day?" "Yes, sir." "I take 2 buses," Emily replied, unsure where he was going with this. Michael fell silent for a few seconds as if processing this information. He had always known Emily was a dedicated employee, but had never stopped to consider the daily struggles she faced. "Starting tomorrow, your arrival time will be 9 a.m., he said, leaving Emily even more confused. "Mr. Harrison, I don't want special treatment. Can I keep coming in at 8? I swear I won't be late again," she said, worried her co-workers might think she was getting special treatment. "It's not special treatment. It's common sense. An employee who lives so far and always arrives on time deserves some flexibility," he explained, turning back to his computer as if to end the conversation. Emily was speechless. In 3 years, this was the first time Michael had shown any awareness of an employee's personal life. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I'll return your jacket as soon as it's dry," she said, standing to leave. "Keep it for today. I have another one here," he replied without looking up from the screen. Emily left the office with her mind racing. Rachel, her closest co-worker, approached her the moment she reached her desk. "So, did he fire you?" Rachel asked, curious. "No. Actually, he changed my schedule to 9 in the morning," Emily answered, still processing what had happened. "What?" Rachel nearly shouted, drawing glances from others around them. "In 3 years here, I've never seen him do something like that." The rest of the day passed oddly. Emily felt the curious stares of her co-workers and realized her brief exchange with Michael had drawn far more attention than she'd wanted. Michael, meanwhile, seemed more distant than usual, avoiding the area where she worked. When she got home that night, Emily found her mother watching a soap opera in their small living room. Mrs. Betty, at 62, had worked her whole life as a housekeeper and was now retired, but she always worried about her daughter. "How was work today, dear?" her mother asked, noticing Emily seemed lost in thought. "Something strange happened, Mom," Emily said, sitting beside Mrs. Betty on the couch. "I was late because of the rain, and my boss was kind to me." "Kind how?" her mother asked, frowning. Emily told her about the jacket and the schedule change. Mrs. Betty, with the wisdom of a woman who'd raised a child alone, grew concerned. "Be careful, Emily. A married man who starts giving special attention to an employee might have other intentions," her mother warned. "Mom, it wasn't like that. He was just polite," Emily defended, though she wondered if her mother might be right. The next day, Emily arrived at the office at 9 sharp, as agreed. She'd spent the previous night searching online for information about Michael Harrison and discovered he'd been widowed 2 years earlier. His wife had died in a car accident, leaving him alone at 35. The news stirred something in her she couldn't explain. Michael gave her a nod when she passed his office, but maintained his usual professional demeanor. Over the next week, things seemed back to normal, until Friday when something happened that would change everything again. Emily was organizing documents when she got a call from the hospital. Her mother had fainted at the grocery store and was in the emergency room. Panicked, she rushed to Michael's office. "Mr. Harrison, I need to leave right away. My mother's in the hospital," she said, visibly shaken. Michael stood immediately. "Which hospital?" "Mercy General, on the north side," Emily answered, grabbing her bag in a hurry. "I'll drive you," he said, taking his car keys. "You don't have to, sir. I can take a cab," Emily insisted, but he was already heading out. "Don't be stubborn. At this hour, driving will be faster," he pressed. On the way to the hospital, Emily couldn't stop trembling. Michael noticed her nerves and tried to reassure her. "Is your mother strong?" he asked, keeping his eyes on the road. "She's the strongest person I know. Raised me all by herself, worked her whole life without complaining," said Emily, her voice choked up. "Then she'll be just fine," said Michael with a certainty that comforted her. At the hospital, they found out Mrs. Betty had suffered a sudden spike in blood pressure, but nothing serious. When Emily saw her on the gurney, she threw herself into her mother's arms, crying with relief. "What a scare you gave me, Mom," Emily said, holding Mrs. Betty's hand. That's when her mother noticed Michael standing by the door. "Who's this handsome young man, dear?" Mrs. Betty asked with a weak smile. "He's my boss, Mom. He brought me here," Emily explained. Michael stepped closer to the bed and greeted Mrs. Betty kindly. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Better now, thank you. And thank you for looking after my daughter," Mrs. Betty said, studying his face carefully. Michael stayed at the hospital until the doctor discharged Mrs. Betty and even offered them a ride home. On the way, Mrs. Betty struck up a conversation from the back seat. "Do you have family, Dr. Michael?" she asked with a mother's natural curiosity. "No, ma'am. It's just me," he replied, a nearly imperceptible sadness in his voice. Emily noticed the shift in his tone and wanted to comfort him but didn't know how. When they arrived at the modest home where Emily lived with her mother, Mrs. Betty insisted Michael come inside for coffee. "I can't let you leave without properly thanking you for your kindness," she said. Michael hesitated, but finally agreed. The house was small but very clean and tidy. The modest living room had a 2-seater sofa, an old television, and a few plants Mrs. Betty tended with care. While Emily made coffee in the kitchen, Mrs. Betty talked with Michael in the living room. "You must think we're poor," she said without embarrassment. "I think you're a close and happy family. That's worth more than any fortune," Michael replied sincerely. Mrs. Betty smiled, sensing something special about this man. "My daughter's a good girl, you know. She studied hard to get where she is. She deserves to be happy," she said, with that directness only mothers have. Michael understood the hint, but didn't know how to respond. When Emily returned with the coffee, the atmosphere felt strange, as if something important had been said in her absence. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. In the days that followed, the office dynamic shifted subtly. Michael started asking about Mrs. Betty's health whenever he saw Emily, and she began noticing small gestures of attention from him: a coffee left on her desk, a quiet compliment on her work, a quick smile when no one was looking. Rachel, ever observant, didn't take long to notice the change. "Emily, don't tell me you haven't noticed the boss acting different around you," she asked during lunch. "Different how?" Emily pretended, though she knew exactly what her friend meant. "He's never asked about anyone else's family here, and yesterday I saw him watching you from his office," Rachel said, lowering her voice. "You're imagining things," Emily said, but she blushed hearing it. The truth was, Emily had noticed Michael's glances too. Sometimes she'd look up and catch him watching her through the glass wall of his office. When their eyes met, he'd quickly look away, as if caught doing something wrong. One afternoon, as Emily was organizing some contracts, Michael stepped out of his office and approached her. "Emily, I need you to stay a little later today. We have to finish the proposal for tomorrow's meeting," he said. "Of course, Mr. Michael," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. At 7 in the evening, the office was empty except for the two of them. Emily was finishing typing the last paragraph of the proposal when Michael approached to review the document. He stood beside her, and she could feel the warmth of his body and the familiar scent she had known since the day with the suit jacket. "It's perfect," he said, but didn't step away immediately. Emily looked up and found him staring directly at her. For a moment, time seemed to stop. There was something in Michael's eyes she had never seen before, a mix of desire and vulnerability that left her breathless. "Emily, he began, but was interrupted by the ringing phone. The moment shattered and Michael quickly moved away to answer. It was an important client, and the call lasted over 20 minutes. By the time he finished, Emily had already gathered her things and was ready to leave. "You don't need to stay any longer, thank you for your help," he said, avoiding direct eye contact. "You're welcome, Mr. Michael. Have a good night," Emily replied, quickly leaving the office. On her way home, she couldn't stop thinking about that moment. There was something in the air between them, something she wasn't sure she should encourage. Michael was her boss, a man clearly out of her social and financial league. Besides, she wasn't sure if he truly felt something for her, or if he was just being kind out of pity. At home, she found her mother watching TV as usual. "You're late today, dear," Mrs. Betty remarked. "I had to work late," Emily explained, sitting beside her. "And how's that handsome boss of yours?" her mother asked with a mischievous smile. "Mum, stop it. He's just my boss," Emily said, but her face turned red. Sure," Mrs. Betty replied, clearly not believing her. "Just guard your heart, my girl. Rich men are complicated for women like us." Those words echoed in Emily's mind all night. Her mother was right. What future could she have with a man like Michael? He had graduated from an expensive university, lived in an upscale neighborhood, and drove a car worth more than she'd earn in 5 years. She was just a secretary who lived in a modest home and relied on public transportation. The next morning, Emily arrived at work determined to keep things strictly professional with Michael. She greeted him politely, as always, but avoided any conversation unrelated to work. Michael noticed the change immediately. All morning, he tried finding excuses to talk to her, but Emily remained formal and distant. At lunchtime, he finally mustered the courage to call her into his office. "Emily, is something wrong? You've been acting strange today," he said, closing the door behind her. "No, Mr. Michael, everything's fine," she replied, avoiding his gaze. "Last night, when we were alone here," he began, but Emily cut him off. "Mr. Michael, with all due respect, I think it's best if we keep our relationship strictly professional," she said, finally meeting his eyes. Michael was taken aback by her bluntness. "I understand," he said, though his voice made it clear he was hurt. "You're right. I apologize if I gave the wrong impression." "No need to apologize. I just think it's better this way," Emily said, her heart tightening at the pain in his expression. In the weeks that followed, they returned to their previous dynamic, but something had changed irreversibly. Michael became even more formal and distant, not just with Emily but with all the staff. Emily, meanwhile, felt as though she had lost something important, but remained convinced she had made the right choice. That was when Amanda Peters arrived at the company. Amanda was a marketing executive hired for a 3-month consulting job. At 30, she was elegant, well-dressed, and clearly from a social class similar to Michael's. From day one, it was obvious she had taken an interest in the manager. "What an interesting man," Amanda remarked to Emily on the first day after meeting Michael. "Is he single?" "Widowed," Emily replied, feeling a pang of jealousy she tried to hide. "Even better. Widowed men are more mature. They already know how to appreciate a good woman," Amanda said with a confident smile. Emily pretended to agree, but inside she was seething. In the days that followed, she had to watch Amanda shamelessly flirt with Michael. The consultant always found excuses to go to his office, always impeccably dressed and made up. "Michael, could you help me with these reports?" Amanda would ask, leaning over his desk in a way that was clearly provocative. Michael, who had become distant and formal with everyone, seemed to respond positively to Amanda's attention. He smiled when talking to her, something Emily hadn't seen in weeks. One afternoon, Emily passed by Michael's office and saw Amanda sitting in the same chair she had sat in that day after being late. Amanda was laughing at something Michael had said, and he looked relaxed and happy. Emily's stomach twisted. She had rejected any possibility of getting closer to Michael, but seeing another woman in that space was tearing her apart inside. "They make a lovely couple, don't they?" Jason commented, appearing beside Emily. "Who?" Emily pretended not to know, though she understood exactly who he meant. "The boss and the consultant. I heard he invited her to dinner," Jason said, clearly enjoying spreading gossip. Emily felt like she'd been punched in the gut. She muttered an excuse and hurried to the restroom, locking herself in a stall and crying silently. For the first time, she admitted to herself that she was in love with Michael Harrison. And now, it was too late. That night at home, Emily barely touched her dinner. Mrs. Betty noticed something was wrong. "What's the matter, dear? You look like you've been to a funeral," her mother observed. "It's nothing, Mom. Just a tough day at work," Emily lied. "Does it have to do with that boss of yours?" Mrs. Betty asked, always sharp. Emily couldn't lie to her mother and told her everything, about the feelings she'd developed for Michael, how she'd kept her distance out of fear, and about Amanda. "Oh, my silly girl," Mrs. Betty sighed. "You missed the train because of pride." "It wasn't pride, Mom, it was common sense. What future could I have with a man like him?" Emily defended herself. "And what future do you have now?" her mother asked, cutting to the chase. "Sweetheart, true love is rare. When it comes along, you don't ask if the person has money or a degree. You grab it with both hands. But now it's too late. He's interested in someone else," Emily said, tears in her eyes. "Maybe, but at least you tried, or else you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what if," Mrs. Betty said, hugging her daughter. The next morning, Emily arrived at the office determined to talk to Michael, but she found Amanda leaving his office with a radiant smile. "Good morning, Emily," Amanda said, clearly in high spirits. "Good morning," Emily replied, forcing a smile. All morning, she tried to find a moment to speak with Michael, but he seemed deliberately busy. At lunchtime, she saw him leaving the building with Amanda. Her heart shattered. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. At 2 in the afternoon, when Michael and Amanda returned from lunch, Emily noticed they were laughing and chatting animatedly. Amanda touched Michael's arm before heading to her temporary office, and he stood still for a few seconds, as if savoring the moment. Emily pretended to be busy with her documents, but her eyes followed Michael until he entered his office. She had missed her chance, and the ache in her chest was almost unbearable. The rest of the afternoon dragged on. Emily made several small mistakes in her work, her mind clearly elsewhere. When it was finally time to leave, she gathered her things quickly, eager to get out of there. "Emily, could you come here for a moment?" Michael called from his office. She took a deep breath and walked over. Michael was seated behind his desk, his expression serious. "Have a seat," he said. Emily obeyed, bracing herself for the worst. Maybe he was about to announce his engagement to Amanda, or perhaps he wanted to let her go to avoid any future awkwardness. "Emily, I noticed you weren't yourself today. Your reports are full of mistakes, something that never happens," Michael said, studying her face. "Is everything okay at home? How's your mother?" The kindness in his voice nearly made her cry. Even though he was clearly interested in another woman, he still cared about her. "My mother is fine, thank you for asking," Emily replied, keeping her voice steady. "Then what's wrong?" he pressed. Emily looked into Michael's eyes and almost lost her nerve, but her mother's words echoed in her mind. She didn't want to spend the rest of her life wondering what if. "Michael," she said, using his first name without Mr. for the first time. "I need to tell you something." He raised his eyebrows, surprised by the informality. Emily began, but the words stuck in her throat. "I made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" Michael asked, leaning forward. "When I said we should keep our relationship strictly professional, that was a mistake," she finally admitted. Michael fell silent for a few seconds that felt like an eternity to Emily. "Emily," he said quietly, "why are you telling me this now?" "Because I need you to know that I have feelings for you," she said, her face burning. "I know it's too late. I know you're interested in Amanda, but I can't keep this to myself anymore." Michael stood up and walked to the window, his back to her. "You have no idea what you're saying," he replied, his voice tense. "I know I'm just a secretary, that I come from a simple family, that I'm not elegant like Amanda," Emily began, but he cut her off, turning sharply. "Stop," he said, with an intensity that startled her. "Don't say those things about yourself." "But it's true," Emily insisted. "I have nothing to offer a man like you." Michael walked over and crouched beside her chair, meeting her eye level. "Emily, you don't understand. Since that day you came in here soaking wet, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you," he said, his voice thick. "You made me feel alive for the first time in 2 years." Emily felt tears welling in her eyes. "But what about Amanda?" she asked. Michael sighed and stood, returning behind his desk. "Amanda is an interesting, elegant woman from my social circle," he said. "The kind of woman everyone expects me to be interested in." "And are you?" Emily asked, afraid of the answer. "I tried," Michael admitted. "When you made it clear you wanted to keep your distance, I tried to be interested in her, but I couldn't." "Why not?" Emily whispered. "Because she's not the one who makes me laugh. She's not the one who worries about whether I've eaten when I skip lunch. She's not the one who works so hard despite earning so little." "It's not her who takes such loving care of her mother," said Michael, looking straight into Emily's eyes. "It's you." Emily could no longer hold back her tears. Michael stepped closer again and hesitantly touched her face. "But you were right when you said we should keep our distance," he said. "I have nothing good to offer." "What do you mean?" asked Emily, confused. "Emily, I'm a widowed, traumatized man who spent 2 years feeling nothing for anyone. You deserve someone better, someone who can give you love without baggage," said Michael. "What if I want that baggage?" asked Emily, surprising him. "What if I want to help you carry that weight?" Michael looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "You don't know what you're saying," he murmured. "Yes, I do. I know I've fallen for a complicated, difficult man who hides his feelings behind a professional mask," said Emily, with more courage than she'd ever felt. "And I know I want to try." Michael moved even closer, and for a moment, it seemed like he might kiss her. But then he abruptly stepped back. "It's late," he said. "You should go home." Emily felt as if she'd been rejected again, but this time even more painfully. "I understand," she said, rising from the chair. "Thank you for letting me speak." She headed for the door, but stopped when she heard his voice. "Emily." She turned. "Tomorrow night there's a company party." "Are you going?" he asked. "I wasn't planning to," she replied. "Amanda will be there," he said, and Emily felt her heart sink again. "But I'd like you to come." "Why?" she asked. Because I need an answer to a question," said Michael cryptically. "What question?" "If you really want to try," he said, gazing intently at her. Emily's heart raced. "And the party will give you that answer?" she asked. "It will," said Michael. "If you show up, I'll know you're serious." Emily nodded and left the office, her mind racing. Michael had left the decision in her hands. If she went to the party, she'd be publicly declaring her interest in him, especially with Amanda present. If she didn't, he'd understand she'd changed her mind. At home, she told her mother everything. "And will you go?" asked Mrs. Betty. "I don't know, Mom." "What if it's awkward? What if he rejects me in front of everyone?" said Emily, nervous. "What if he doesn't? What if he's waiting for proof that you're brave enough to be with him?" her mother countered. "I don't even have the right clothes for a company party," said Emily, eyeing her modest wardrobe. "That can be fixed," said Mrs. Betty with a mysterious smile. The next morning, Mrs. Betty woke early and went to her sister Aunt Rose's house, who had worked for years as a seamstress for wealthy families. Rose had kept some dresses her employers had donated over the years. "This one is perfect for Emily," said Rose, holding up a simple yet elegant navy blue dress. "The lady who gave it to me barely wore it. It's practically new." Mrs. Betty brought the dress home and presented it to her daughter when she returned from work. "Mom, I can't accept this," said Emily, seeing how beautiful the dress was. "Yes, you can," Aunt Rose insisted. "She said it's for you to shine," said her mother, tears in her eyes. That evening, as she got ready, Emily barely recognized herself in the mirror. The dress fit her perfectly, and she'd styled her hair simply but elegantly. She wore no expensive jewelry or designer shoes, but she had something money couldn't buy, the determination to fight for what she wanted. The party was at a fancy downtown hotel. When Emily arrived, she felt intimidated by the sophisticated setting and the well-dressed crowd. For a moment, she considered going home. "Emily," a voice called out. She turned and saw Rachel approaching, accompanied by her husband. "Wow, you look stunning," Rachel said, admiring her friend's dress. "Thank you. You look great too," Emily replied, grateful to see a familiar face. "Has the boss arrived yet?" Rachel asked, lowering her voice. "I don't know, I just got here," Emily said, but her eyes were already scanning the room for Michael. She spotted him a few minutes later near the bar, talking to some businessmen. He looked impeccable in a black suit, and Emily felt her heart race just looking at him. "He's gorgeous, isn't he?" Rachel commented, following her friend's gaze. "He is," Emily admitted. "And the consultant? Where is she?" Rachel asked, glancing around. As if summoned, Amanda appeared at that moment, breathtaking in a red dress that seemed tailor-made. She approached Michael with the confidence of someone who knew her own allure. Emily watched as Amanda touched Michael's arm and whispered something in his ear that made him smile. She suddenly felt small and insignificant in comparison. "Are you just going to stand there, or are you going to show her who's in charge?" Rachel whispered, encouraging her friend. Emily took a deep breath and walked toward the group where Michael stood. When he saw her, his expression changed completely. The polished smile he'd been wearing turned into something genuine and surprised. "Emily," he said, and there was so much affection in his voice that everyone around noticed. "Good evening, Michael," she replied, forcing herself to stay calm. Amanda looked from Michael to Emily, clearly sensing the tension in the air. "Michael, aren't you going to introduce me to your employee?" Amanda said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. Amanda, this is Emily Johnson, my secretary," Michael said, but there was something in his tone that made it clear she was much more than that. "Pleasure," Emily said, extending her hand. "The pleasure's mine," Amanda replied, squeezing Emily's hand tighter than necessary. "What an interesting dress. Vintage." Emily felt the jab, but before she could respond, Michael stepped in. "Emily looks beautiful tonight," he said, looking directly at her. The music started playing, a slow, romantic song. Amanda immediately turned to Michael. "How about a dance?" she suggested, already offering her hand. Michael hesitated for a moment, glancing at Emily. Then, to everyone's surprise, including Amanda's, he held out his hand to Emily. "May I?" he asked. Emily felt all eyes on her. Amanda looked clearly shocked and offended, but when she met Michael's gaze, all her insecurities melted away. "Yes," she said, placing her hand in his. Hand in hand, they walked to the dance floor, leaving Amanda standing alone. Emily could feel the curious stares of their co-workers, but she didn't care. When Michael pulled her close, his hand resting on her waist, she felt like she was dreaming. "You came," he whispered in her ear. "Did you doubt I would?" she asked, looking into his eyes. "A little," he admitted with a smile. They danced in silence for a few minutes, lost in their own world. Emily could smell his cologne, feel the warmth of his body, the steadiness of his hands. When the song ended, they lingered in each other's arms for a few more seconds. "Emily," Michael said softly. "Yes? Can I take you home?" he asked. She nodded, and they left the party together, ignoring Amanda's stunned glare and the surprised looks from their colleagues. In the car, they drove in silence for a while. Emily was nervous, unsure what to expect. "Where are we going?" she asked, noticing he hadn't taken the route to her house. "There's a place I want to show you," Michael said. He took her to a lookout point that offered a view of the entire city. The place was deserted, illuminated only by the moon and the city lights below. "It's beautiful," said Emily, admiring the view. "This is where I come when I need to think," said Michael, leaning against the car beside her. "And what do you need to think about today?" she asked. Michael stayed silent for a moment, gazing at the city. "About you, about us, about whether I'm being fair, asking you to step into my messy life," he finally said. "And what conclusion did you reach?" Emily asked, turning to look at him. "That maybe some things are worth the risk," Michael replied, looking at her. Emily felt her heart race. "Michael," she began, but he interrupted her. "Let me speak first," he said, moving closer. "Emily, you reminded me what it feels like to feel. For 2 years I was just existing, going through routines, pretending I was okay. But you brought color back into my life." "I didn't do anything special," Emily said, her voice trembling. "Yes, you did. You cared about me when I was being impossible. You treated me like a human being, not like an intimidating boss. You showed me what genuine kindness looks like," Michael said, touching her face. "Michael," Emily whispered, "I know we're different. I know I have baggage that will make things difficult, but I want to try if you do," he said softly. In response, Emily stepped closer and, rising on her tiptoes, kissed him. It was a gentle kiss, full of promises and hope. When they pulled apart, Michael rested his forehead against hers. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "I am," Emily replied with more certainty than she'd ever felt about anything. They stood there, holding each other for a few more minutes, watching the city and talking about their fears and hopes. When Michael finally drove her home, Emily felt like she'd won the lottery. At her doorstep, he kissed her again, this time with more passion. "See you tomorrow?" he asked. "Every day," she replied with a smile. Emily floated into the house. She found her mother waiting awake in the living room. "So?" asked Mrs. Betty, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "So, I think I'm dating my boss," Emily said, collapsing onto the couch beside her mother. "Thank goodness," Mrs. Betty exclaimed, hugging her daughter. "I was starting to worry you'd end up an old maid." Emily laughed, feeling happier than she'd ever been. But the happiness wouldn't last long. The next day, when she arrived at the office, Emily noticed a strange atmosphere. Colleagues whispered in small groups and fell silent when she walked by. "What's going on?" she asked Rachel. "You haven't heard?" Rachel said, looking concerned. "Heard what?" "Amanda left last night. She said she couldn't work in a professionally inappropriate environment," Rachel explained in a hushed voice. Emily's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" "She spread the word that you're having an affair with the boss. Said it's unethical and she can't condone that kind of behavior," Rachel said. "But that's not how it is," Emily began. But she was interrupted by Michael's arrival. He looked tense and worried. He nodded at Emily and quickly entered his office, closing the door behind him. Half an hour later, Emily received a message from him through the internal system. "Need to talk. Empty meeting room on the 3rd floor now." Emily went up to the 3rd floor with a heavy heart. She found Michael pacing the meeting room, clearly agitated. "Michael, what?" she started, but he cut her off. "Emily, we have a problem," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Amanda," she said, not needing further explanation. "She went to speak with the regional director, said there was inappropriate behavior among employees at the company, that it could lead to workplace issues," explained Michael. "And what did the director say?" asked Emily, afraid of the answer. "That he'll send auditors to investigate, that if favoritism or harassment is proven, someone will be fired," said Michael, sounding defeated. "Harassment?" Emily felt outraged. "How can she say that? She twisted everything, said I changed her schedule, treated you specially, gave you rides home." Michael slumped heavily into a chair. "All of that is true," said Emily, "but it wasn't harassment." "I know that, you know that, but how do we prove it?" Michael asked, looking at her desperately. Emily sat beside him. "Michael, do you regret it? What happened last night?" she asked, dreading his reply. "No," he said immediately. "But maybe we should put things on hold until this situation is resolved." "On hold," Emily repeated. "Keep our distance, act like nothing happened, at least until the auditors finish their investigation," Michael explained. Emily felt like she'd been doused with cold water. "I understand," she said, standing up. "Emily, it's not what I want," Michael began. "But it's what has to be," she finished. "I get it. My job is on the line too. It'll be okay. Once this mess is over, we'll pick up where we left off," Michael said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Of course," Emily forced a smile. "We should get back to work before someone suspects." The following weeks were hard for both of them. They maintained a strictly professional relationship at the office, but Emily could see the tension in Michael's eyes whenever they crossed paths. The auditors arrived and began interviewing employees, probing for any signs of favoritism or misconduct. Emily was called in on Thursday morning. The auditor was a stern, middle-aged man who asked pointed questions about her relationship with Michael. "Miss Johnson, has Mr. Michael Harrison ever treated you differently from other employees?" the auditor asked. "He adjusted my start time when he learned I lived far away," Emily answered honestly. "And why do you think he did that?" "Because I'm a good employee, and he didn't want to lose me over traffic," she said. "Any other instances where he showed you favoritism?" Emily hesitated, thinking of the day he took her to the hospital, the party where he chose to dance with her instead of Amanda. "He helped me when my mother was sick, drove me to the hospital," she admitted. "Is that standard company procedure?" "No, it was a personal gesture," Emily said. The auditor scribbled in his notepad, "Miss Johnson, do you and Mr. Harrison have any relationship beyond a professional one?" Emily met his gaze and made a decision that would change everything. "No," she lied. Leaving the audit room, Emily felt like a traitor. She'd lied to protect both Michael and herself, but she knew that lie might destroy any chance they had together. By Friday, the auditors wrapped up their investigation. Emily and Michael had barely spoken all week, and she could see he was suffering as much as she was. The following Monday, the regional director came in person to deliver the findings. Emily was at her desk when she saw Michael emerge from the meeting, looking relieved. Half an hour later, he passed by and discreetly left a note. "All clear. Amanda was contradicted by multiple employees. See you tonight at our spot." A wave of relief and happiness washed over Emily. She quickly wrote yes on the paper and handed it back when he passed by again. That evening at the overlook where they had shared their first kiss, Michael waited for her, leaning against his car. "I thought you wouldn't come," he said as she approached. "Why wouldn't I?" asked Emily. "Because you lied to the auditors," Michael replied, catching her off guard. "I know you said we had nothing but a professional relationship." "How do you know?" she asked, blushing. "Because I said the same thing," he admitted. "And if you had told the truth, they would have fired me on the spot." "Are you mad at me?" Emily asked. "Mad?" Michael laughed. "I was in love before, but now I'm completely lost for you." He pulled her into his arms and kissed her passionately. "Thank you for protecting me," he whispered against her lips. "Always," she replied. "Emily, I don't want to hide my feelings for you anymore," Michael said. "I know it'll be complicated, that people will talk, but I don't care anymore." "Are you sure?" she asked. "Absolutely," he said. "Life's too short to waste it worrying about what others think." That night, they talked late into the night about their plans. They decided to take their relationship public gradually, giving their co-workers time to adjust. In the months that followed, Emily and Michael built their relationship with care and tenderness. He got to know Mrs. Betty better, and she quickly adopted him like a son. Emily, in turn, discovered Michael's sensitive side, his scars and his hopes. 6 months after that first rainy morning, Michael surprised Emily with a question that would change their lives forever. It was a Tuesday, and rain was falling again. Emily arrived at the office at 9 as usual, but found Michael waiting for her in the lobby with a bouquet of flowers. "What's this?" she asked, surprised. "A tribute to the most important day of my life," he said, handing her the flowers. "What day?" Emily asked, confused. "The day you were late because of the rain," Michael said with a smile. "It's exactly 6 months today." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She hadn't even remembered the date, but Michael had marked it on his calendar. "Michael," she began, but he interrupted her. "Emily Johnson, will you marry me?" he asked, kneeling right there in the company lobby in front of all their co-workers. The entire office froze. Everyone gathered to watch the scene. Emily looked around, seeing the smiling faces of Rachel, Jason, and all the others who had followed their story. "Yes," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "1,000 times yes." Michael stood and kissed her as their co-workers applauded. In that moment, Emily realized that sometimes love arrives in the most unexpected way, disguised as a simple delay on a rainy morning. A year later, on a rainy Tuesday morning, they married in a simple ceremony attended by Mrs. Betty, their co-workers, and a few close friends. Emily wore an elegant yet understated dress, and Michael couldn't stop smiling. During the reception, he gave a speech that moved everyone. "They say the best things in life come when you least expect them. I found that to be true. Emily walked into my life on a rainy morning, soaked and late, and taught me that true love doesn't care about social class, bank accounts, or diplomas. True love looks at the heart, and Emily's heart is the purest I've ever known." Emily cried with emotion, and Mrs. Betty kept repeating that she had known from day one they would end up together. 2 years after their wedding, Michael and Emily opened their own consulting firm. She discovered she had a natural talent for management, and together they made the perfect team. The company grew quickly, and they hired several employees, always treating them with the same respect and kindness they would want for themselves. Mrs. Betty moved into a bigger house they bought, where there was room for the family they planned to build. And every time it rained, Michael made sure to remind Emily how that first rainy morning had changed their lives forever. "Do you know what I love most about you?" Michael asked one of those rainy mornings 5 years after they'd met. "What?" Emily replied, nestled in his arms on the porch watching the rain fall. "That you never gave up on us, even when I said we should keep our distance," he said, kissing the top of her head. "And do you know what I love most about you?" she asked in return. "What?" "That you lent me your jacket that first day, even though you barely knew me," Emily said. "That's when I realized that behind that tough boss act was a kind man." "I was lost the moment I saw you walking in soaked," Michael admitted. "I just took a while to admit it." "Worth the wait," Emily said, turning to kiss him. And that's how Emily Johnson and Michael Harrison discovered that sometimes a simple delay because of the rain could be the start of the greatest adventure of their lives. They learned that true love knows no social barriers, doesn't care about financial differences, and has the power to turn two lonely people into a happy family. The rain, which had once been a cause for worry and delay, became a symbol of renewal and new beginnings. And every time it rained, they remembered that the best encounters happen when we least expect them, disguised as little surprises that change our lives forever. 3 years later, when their first child was born on a rainy Tuesday morning, they couldn't help but laugh at the coincidence. Little Ethan came into the world during a storm, as if fate wanted to remind them that their family had begun exactly that way. "I think he's going to be like his mom, always showing up unexpectedly," Michael joked, holding his son while Emily rested. "Or like his dad, taking his time to accept the best things in life," Emily teased with a tired but happy smile. Mrs. Betty, now a proud grandmother, held her daughter's hand and watched Michael with his grandson. "You know, my dear, when you came home soaked that day and told me about your boss, I already knew something had changed," her mother said. You had a different glow about you. What do you mean, Mom? Emily asked. You talked about him with an affection you tried to hide, and when he showed up here to take care of you at the hospital, I saw the same look in his eyes, Mrs. Betty explained. Real love, the kind that can't stay hidden for long. The end. Now tell us, do you believe love can blossom in the most unexpected moments? Have you ever experienced a situation where an unexpected event changed your life? Share your thoughts in the comments with heartfelt words. If you enjoyed Emily and Michael's story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other touching stories.